Hey friends, it's Megan, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you guys how I crocheted this sunflower cardigan inspired by the one and only J.W. Anderson Harry Styles cardigan. This project is a pretty easy one, it just takes a lot of time, but I think the results are definitely worth it. And yeah, let's get into it. So for the materials, you're going to need some yarn. I used a worsted weight size 4 yarn, as well as a darning needle to sew in my ends, and a 6mm hook. You can also use a 6.5mm hook, and some measuring tape. For my yarn, I used this Red Heart with Love premium acrylic yarn in the colors chocolate, tangerine, corn silk, white, and sage. Here's the amount of yarn that I used for each color. For the front panel, you're going to need a total of 16 squares, 8 on each side. For the back panel, you'll need 20 squares in a 4x5 pattern. And for the sleeves, you'll need a total of 24 squares with 12 for each sleeve. Okay, so getting on to the longest part of making this entire cardigan, crocheting the granny squares. This took me so long. I think crocheting one granny square at first took me 30 minutes, and when I got better it was only like 15 minutes. But yeah, that was my first attempt.
Thousands of tears later.
But eventually I did end up crocheting what I thought I needed at the time, which was 51 granny squares. But I then figured out that the sunflower granny squares were actually smaller than a typical granny square, so I ended up having to make 9 more with a total of 60 granny squares. So this took me a little while longer, and the main reason why this project took so long for me was because I just kept not working on it. I just kind of tossed it to the side and just worked on it whenever I had enough motivation to, because school makes me sad. But anyways, I thought these time lapses were kind of satisfying, so I hope you enjoy them too. I'm also just gonna be sewing in all the ends using a darning needle. Sometime in December, I eventually ended up stitching all the squares together to make my back panel, my front panel, and my sleeves. And then I had to just put that all together and go in with the darning needle and sew those bad boys up. But there's different methods to joining granny squares. This was just the one that I used. So the way I sewed mine together was by passing through the yarn, tying a knot, and then you're just going to go through the center 2 loops. So you're going to go through the second loop of the first chain and the first loop of the second chain. I found that this created a really tight stitch and a pretty even seam, so that was the method that worked best for me, but feel free to use any other method. And you're just basically going to stitch everything together. Make sure to do this with the side you want facing into each other, so you're basically going to sew it together inside out and then flip it, and then you get a nice pretty seam on the outside. I do have to say, crocheting while watching Cody Kono Miller videos was the best. But yeah, this part's pretty self-explanatory, but you're just gonna make sure that you're going through the same amount of chains for each square, and that's what my cardigan looked like when I finished. And here's a little try on moment. So after I finished sewing together the cardigan, I started to make my ribbing. So there's 3 different ribbing components. You have your cuff inside ribbing, and you're also gonna have the bottom ribbing. But basically, to make the ribbing, you're just gonna chain the amount you need, and then you're gonna half double crochet, but in back loops only. There's video tutorials on how to do this, and I'll link them in the description box below. But after I finished mine, I just sewed everything together, and then that was it. I finished. I finally finished my sunflower cardigan. This took me 6 months, way back in like June or July, and today is the last day of December. So I'm proud to announce that I finished it before 2022. It's definitely very holey, so it's kind of cold. This is my first time ever making something like a cardigan or a sweater. It was just such a labor of love, and I'm so glad that I finally finished it before 2022. Thank you guys for watching my videos throughout this year, and I hope I can bring you more new, fresh, exciting, fun content. See you next time. Bye!